All right, hey everybody. Today we're going to talk about the Whiskey Rebellion, and it's probably one of the most important historical events in the time of our early country, and primarily because how George Washington handles the situation. So, first question is, what did Hamilton get Congress to pass, which led to the Whiskey Rebellion? How did Washington react to the rebellion, and what does this prove? And what did Pinckney's Treaty give us? Okay, so we're going to start with the Whiskey Rebellion. It says to pay off the war debt. If you recall, Hamilton wanted to do several things. He wanted the states' debt to be assumed by the federal government, so the federal government would deal with the debt now. And he wanted to create a Bank of the United States, to have stable currency. And he wanted to impose high tariffs, high taxes on imports. He also realizes that more money is needed, and he persuades Congress to pass an excise tax on the sale of whiskey. Excise tax is generally today considered a tax on alcohol, tobacco, gasoline. So this tax is going to become in existence by Hamilton, and he wants to tax the sale of whiskey to make extra money for the federal government. It says the tariff rates were too low to pay it off, according to Hamilton. So the money they're bringing in from the tax, from tariffs, imports, still wasn't enough. So he wants to tax the sale of whiskey. Who would this matter to other than people drinking whiskey? It would matter to basically to farmers in the western part of these new states who are growing a lot of corn. So whiskey is corn based, and it says in western Pennsylvania, lots of farmers refused to pay the excise tax on the whiskey that they distilled from surplus corn. And they went so far as to attack government revenue collectors, like tax collectors who were coming to collect money for the federal government, because they felt like that this tax, the whiskey tax, was unfair to them, particularly because they're growing the corn and trying to make a living. Some pictures. So this one, first, interestingly, Tea Party or Whiskey Rebellion, how George Washington handled armed protesters. So this picture here of a gentleman who says, "It is time to water the tree of liberty." This is a more modern day photograph of a Tea Party protest. It says November 2009, over the summer, protesters with loaded firearms, see his gun right here, started showing up at town halls about the health care reform, Obamacare, even at ones hosted by President Obama. And they had signs saying, "We come unarmed this time." And the self-proclaimed Tea Party patriots claim to be acting in the spirit of the Boston Tea Party and are going to quote Thomas Jefferson, "The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of tyrants and patriots." Jefferson was saying, see, obviously, remember, Jefferson supports the agrarian agriculture society in the western states and western territories. And they're going to fall in line with this idea that the whiskey tax is wrong, and Jefferson would support that. Also, realize again that Jefferson and Hamilton don't agree on anything, so it would make sense Jefferson's going to agree with the farmers. So he's saying here, sometimes the patriots need to go after these tyrants, the government, and if that causes bloodshed, so be it. It says many of these Americans weren't just protesting government reform of health care, they were protesting the government itself, saying it grabbed too much control. So that's sort of the Tea Party group. Keep in mind that they are originated here in this Whiskey Rebellion. So these farmers start attacking revenue collectors and refusing to pay the tax, and there's bloodshed. I want to show you this picture. They would tar and feather tax collectors. So these are farmers. They're burning places. They're going after these tax collectors like here, and put hot tar on their body and then feathers on them. And so you have sticky tar with feathers on you, and it would lead to death because you would just bake in the sun. They would tie them up and leave them outside like that. It was pretty bad. So these farmers are pretty serious about their problem here. All right, so it says, President Washington, what's he going to do about this? What's he going to do? He's going to respond quickly, and he's going to federalize 15,000 state militiamen, place them under the command, interestingly, of Alexander Hamilton, who enacted this tax. So he puts Hamilton in charge and federalizes 15,000 state militiamen. It says the rebellion collapses without any bloodshed. Also interesting is that Washington puts on his military uniform again, and he picks up his sword and goes out and decides, you know what, I'm going to take it to these people, these farmers. We are not going to have bloodshed in our country. We're not going to continue to have these rebellions. So this is the first time that you see a sitting president put on a military uniform, go out on his horse, and with Hamilton lead the charge against this rebellion. It says, to some, Washington proved that the federal government was strong enough to deal with the rebellion. So they put down the rebellion without any bloodshed, and they are very successful in proving that we're not going to continue this way. We're not going to have rebellions like this against the federal government. It's not happening. We're not going to have lawlessness. To others, such as Jefferson, they thought that this was unwarranted, that Washington went too far. He should not have gone out with the military to put down the rebellion. So, some pictures of that. First, here's a really cool cartoon of George Washington holding the Constitution and putting the lid on the Whiskey Rebellion. Okay, another one is a very famous picture of Washington with his army during the time of this rebellion. So again, you see the military uniform and the sitting president going out to stop something by using military force. Okay, so that happens. Okay, Jefferson's not happy that Washington is taking this stance. So there's also, at the time, a revolution in France, and it broke out against the monarchy, and we have to decide, who are we going to support? Are we going to support the French citizens? Are we going to support the French monarchy? It says current French-U.S. alliance was with the French monarchy, but that's not a republic. So Jefferson, of course, remember, he's going to support France. He's angry at the British continuing to seize our goods that we were sending to France, and he wants us to join France against Britain. Okay? Washington does not agree. He thinks that the United States is too young. I mean, we just had our own rebellion, Whiskey Rebellion. We do not need to engage ourselves in other countries' business. And so he says we don't need to get involved in European wars. We need to stay out. We're not quite ready for that. And in 1793, he issues, big deal, a proclamation of neutrality. He says we, America, will be neutral in whatever's going on in Europe. We're not going to choose sides. Jefferson is livid because he wants to support France. He's saying the British are already stopping our ships and taking things off of it that's supposed to go to France. Why are we not helping the French form a republic? What are we doing here? So in his fury, he resigns his cabinet post as Secretary of State in protest. Even though he and Washington normally get along, he totally disagrees with this proclamation of neutrality on the part of Washington. So here's a picture of the French Revolution. A lot of chaos happening in their country, and this is also the time of the guillotine and all that. Here's a proclamation of neutrality. So it says the French Revolution is going on. It's going to separate in America Federalists who support Britain from Republicans, Jefferson, who support France. Most Americans are initially pleased. Reaction to Reign of Terror, Jeffersonians and Federalists. Who will we support in this world war? And Washington says we'll support no one. We're going to remain neutral. Okay, so also Great Britain. So I mentioned problems persist with them. The British troops are still occupying some U.S. forts. They're giving weapons to the Native Americans, encouraging them to attack Americans. This is a problem. They're also continuing to use impressment. We've had both of these things before. So impressment, seizing our ships, making our citizens work for the British. I don't think you will have forgotten, but just in case, here's another depiction of that. British redcoats taking American sailors and forcing them to work on British ships, like kidnapping. So, Washington decides to try to end this issue by sending over John Jay, who was Supreme Court Justice, over to develop Jay's Treaty in 1794. So John Jay is going to go to Britain. He's going to negotiate on impressment. The only thing the British agree to is to leave the posts, the forts in America. They say nothing about agreeing to stopping impressment. So it's obvious they're going to continue to impress our sailors, and Jay's Treaty is not really respected. So back home, U.S. supporters of France, those Republicans, are going to get even more furious at the British because they don't agree to stop impressing our sailors. I have a picture of Jay's Treaty here, and this just explains it sparks domestic unrest. Like at home, people really become more and more and more divided, and you see that Washington was right. Political parties cause division. So John Jay goes to England. He demands all these things. Hamilton secretly informs the English that the U.S. is not firm in their demands because he's on their side. Jay's Treaty won few concessions. Americans are extremely angry because we're not stopping the impressment, and we're divided over this treaty. Washington accepts it. Okay, so that's a problem. Then we have Spain. So Spain is a little jealous that we might be getting too friendly with the British because we've signed this Jay's Treaty. Little do they know that that was not the case. But anyway, Thomas Pinckney, U.S. ambassador to Spain, will negotiate a treaty. So Spain's a little bit more willing now to give some territory to us as a sign of friendship, to stay in good with us. So he develops Pinckney's Treaty. They will give up, Spain will give up land east of the Mississippi. I'll show you where that is, except for Florida. They're going to hold on to Florida still. But there's a strip of land they will give up. And they agree to open the Mississippi River to us. And we now have the port of New Orleans. Okay, so this was disputed even after the Louisiana Purchase, who would really control the port of New Orleans. Now it's undeniable the Spanish are totally out. We get the New Orleans port, we get the Mississippi River totally, and we get this land, little strip of land east of Florida. So I'll show you pictures of that. Also, you will do a map in class about this. So here's New Orleans port, okay? So they're going to give up that particular port, and they're going to give up this territory here. Okay, all this territory here will go to us, Americans. All of this territory here will stay in the hands of the Spanish. So we get this area here, and this is given by Georgia to the United States. This right here was what Spain will give up, okay? All right, so let's go back and let's answer essential questions really quickly. And you also need to write your summary. So the essential questions say, what did Hamilton get Congress to pass? He got Congress to pass an excise tax, which was a tax on the whiskey. And how did Washington react to this rebellion? He puts it down. He puts on his military guard. He puts Alexander Hamilton in charge. They go out and they stop the rebellion. And they say to the farmers, you're not going to do this. You're going to follow what the federal government says. If we enact a tax, you're going to pay it. Pinckney's Treaty gives us that strip of land, which is current day Alabama, Mississippi, and also access to that port in New Orleans for sure now, and the Mississippi River. We don't yet have Florida, but that's coming soon. Okay, do your summary. Thanks, guys.